Tell us when. And we are here. You know what? I need a freaking theme song. I'm thinking something like the revolution will not be televised, or some really radical stuff. Something that like scares white people. I don't know. Anyway, good morning. This is Talking While Black. I'm your host, Derik Washington. You can find me on Facebook, Derik L. Washington. And I'm here with one of my guests, Leslie Ann Turner. You can find her on Facebook, but I don't know if she wants you finding her on Facebook because she's that way. So Talking While Black is basically a way for the news and current events to be talked about from a Black point of view, hopefully with a sense of humor about stuff, because Black folks, we do laugh at pretty much everything, and that's what the show's about. Leslie is someone that I really admire, and I met during the Don't Shoot rally, which was in reaction to everything going on around the country with unarmed Black men being murdered by police officers. And she really impressed me because most times you meet folks who say that they are activists and they turn out to be fraudivists. They just, they talk the talk, but they never walk the walk. And Leslie walked the walk and put together one of the largest civil rights rallies that we've had in Las Vegas. So Leslie, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's put this.
Yeah. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your background, family, and what brought you to activism, and then we're going to go into the news of the day.
Okay. I'm from Southern California. I've lived all over Los Angeles, the Inland Empire. Came to Las Vegas for school, UNLV, and just decided to stay. And I think what brought me to activism was just, number one, my upbringing. I came from a household that we talked about social issues, and my dad was a Black Panther. He wasn't active at the time by the time we were growing up, but he was Sergeant at Arms of the Pensacola, Florida chapter, and he just really ingrained in us a sense of Black pride and a sense of always being aware of what's going on in our communities. So, I remember being a kid and him forcing me and my sisters to sit down and watch Roots. Like, we were like 7 and 8 years old. We're like, no, you don't want to watch it. But he's like, you're going to sit down and you're going to watch this and you're going to understand it. And then you're going to watch it again. And then you're going to watch the sequel.
Roots 5.0. This time it's personal.
Right. So, that's kind of where my, I guess my love for my people comes from, and just my passion to.
You always say that. You always say, I love Black people.
Yeah.
And it's refreshing to hear, first of all, but you say that quite frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I just feel that that's something that's lacking. We don't love ourselves. We don't, it's like James Brown, I'm Black and I'm proud. It's like we don't feel that anymore. We don't feel that spark is not there anymore. So I feel that that's what's lacking. We need to love each other. We need to love our people. We need to be okay with saying that I love my people. I love Black people. I love this race, So I think we're just, taught to be so inclusive, which is fine, but we have to still love ourselves. So.
Do you think that, because this always gets me, it seems like you can be Polish American and be like, I love to polka dance. You can be Italian American and be like, oh, I love Italy. It's almost like you can be everything / American and talk about your culture. But to me, it just seems like Black people, our culture, it seems like it's not celebratable, or it's not something that we can talk about. And when we talk about our culture, it's like, why is everything about race?
Exactly. And I think that comes from the fact too that a lot of our culture was taken away from us, obviously. So it's like we don't even have an identity or a culture. But when we say, oh, Black Power or Black Pride, it's looked down, it's frowned upon. Whereas if
You say Irish pride.
yeah, or if you say, Italian pride,
Yeah.
or
Kiss me, I'm Irish.
Filipino pride,
Right.
then it's fine, it's great.
Is it because people are afraid of us?
Um,
And by people, I mean white people.
I think they're afraid of us uniting. They know the power that if we could just unite, they know that we'd be unstoppable. So I think, yeah, it probably does come from fear.
Sometimes I think that they think we're going to be all Planet of the Apes or something if we ever do unite, and it's like, it bugs me because I just, if we talked about this the other day, if this is the melting pot, how come we're not allowed to be part of that? And I think some of it goes back to the fact that I think white people still think that we belong to them.
Right.
And that we don't really, when we say that we're not separate, but when we say something that's good about us, it's like we're rejecting all they've done for us or something.
Right. Which we didn't ask for.
Right. And honestly, I don't have 1 ounce of relation to Africa. I really don't. I'm not an African American. I'm a Black American. And I think that the fabric of America and the culture, Black culture, is uniquely American. And I think that we need to respect what we brought.
I agree with you, but I do feel that we need to explore our link to Africa more. Like, we need to understand it and we need to recognize it, because we're all from Africa, whether we want to embrace it or not. It's just what it is. That's where we came from. So I think understanding that relationship and understanding our past, and as far as Black history goes, understanding like that's a part of our history, I think that we'll be enlightened, because we came from greatness. We came from kings and queens. We didn't come from slavery. You know what I mean? That was not the start of Black history. So, and I think that was kind of the start of Black history in the U.S. So that's why I think it's important to go beyond
the shame of our beginnings in this country,
beyond the American Black history into our start in Africa, because I think it will instill a sense of pride and a sense of I came from greatness, just to get that in like young people. And I just think it's important. So yeah, we do have our own culture. We do have our own line. As far as being Black Americans is obviously a lot different than being African, but we still have to recognize that link.
Do you think that we do ourselves probably as much damage as white folks when we do we were talking earlier in the car about music and how you don't have a public enemy anymore, screaming about fight the power and fear of a black planet and 911 is a joke. You don't have that anymore. You've got, get up on that pole, bring home the money, I still love you, right, and right. Pop that, we'll see, etc. Personally, and the sagging and the this and the that, I was brought up, because I'm old, like me and Jesus, we used to like hang up at the 7-Eleven together around the corner. But I was brought up that I had to be twice as good as any white person, which was unfortunate, but it was true. I was also taught that I had to be the best person in the room at all times, which still affects me to this day, much to the chagrin of others. But in the 60s and 70s, we were brought up with that, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. But being black and proud meant that you had a responsibility, right, to America and to yourselves. What happened?
I wish I knew. I agree. We just don't care like we used to care, and you have a few people who are coming out now, celebrities that are speaking out against things like John Legend, for instance, but it's not as mainstream as it was, you
Right.
know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I think Black issues just get swept under the rug. And I think once you reach a level of fame, it's like even, you know, it's swept under the rug even further. That's why we don't have, you know, songs like Fight the Power anymore. And I just think it's not, for me personally, I believe that it goes back to knowing our history, knowing where we come from, and you know, infiltrating the community and with programs and things of that nature that help build Black people up from the inside, and then we can kind of like blossom out. Because right now, I mean, the younger generation, and not all, of course,
Right.
but many are, I mean, they just don't care. They don't care about where we came from as a race or what's been sacrificed for you to get to the point that we are now. So,
You know, and I don't. We almost, to me, we almost had a renaissance, and it was unfortunate, but with Ferguson and with like the Don't Shoot rally period, we had a renaissance of people caring, and it seems like, you know, like this. It seems like there's been a distraction from the issues that Black folks have. You know, Rachel Dulugu is the perfect example. Look, Laura Martin is here. She just showed up, and which means, and Laura, push that back. Well, right now it's gonna be on your booty. Here, come on over.
I didn't realize that.
So, give us a moment, folks. Laura's here, and let's see. Let's move around. I'll move to the left.
okay. Oh, see.
You were back. I'll go.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was good. Thank you.
Black People Organization. Well, Laura, Little Miss Colored People time. Laura, introduce yourself.
My name is Laura Martin. I work with the Progressive Leadership Alliance in Nevada.
And Laura, much like Leslie, is a huge activist. Laura, we're just going to drag you into where we were. We're talking about how we used to have, you know, Black Power, Black Pride, etc., and how recently there was a renaissance in that around like Ferguson and all the things that are going on. And it seems like over the summer here, we sort of got sidetracked. We got lost. What do you think about that?
I just think it's an issue. We just don't have a community here, and that permeates through Asian community, white community, Latino community. We live in such a transient place where people move in and out, and there's no sense of history. People don't know about riots in West Las Vegas. They don't know who Ruby Duncan is, and so they just don't, you know, when these other things have popped up, like, you know, last night in Charleston, South Carolina, hundreds of people automatically went in the streets. We've had issues here. We've had a bus driver murder somebody. We've had, you know, people killed at a bus stop by a drunk driver. It's like nobody's in the streets. It's like that not sense of community. Like, okay, this is the gathering place where traditionally people come to have communion or whatever, to meet with the community. There's nothing like that here.
Whose fault is that? I mean, I understand about the transient thing, and I think that Vegas often falls back on that as sort of an excuse, like nobody's from here or whatever. But is there a fault to be laid? Is it the religious community? Is it the politicians? Is it community activists? Like, if we were to lay blame, where does the blame lie?
I think it could lie with all of us. I mean, it wasn't, you know, the mid-'70s here in Las Vegas, Black people weren't allowed to meet together. You know, there was a house in this neighborhood where a white woman would sneak Black people into her house so they could meet secretly. And she risked arrest for doing that. So it could be just...
And when was that?
It was like in the 70s. It was
Wow.
John Wanderer's mother.
Oh, really?
Emily did that. And that was, the 70s wasn't a long time ago.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
And maybe people are still holding on to that kind of like mistrust or scaredness of, you know, speaking out. But I think blame could be placed at kind of the old guard who don't build new leaders. They keep it, you know, institutional
This is the
information,
only place I've
historical
ever been
information.
where the leadership is like 80 years old.
Yeah.
And
And they don't want people behind. Well, I don't want to say that. It seems like they don't have people coming up behind them who can then take the knowledge and then still create more leadership. It's like, all these institutions, be it the NAACP, Black churches, it's like almost, you could say, elderly people.
Right.
And, you know, young kids don't want to go to a church. They don't want to listen to someone who's like their dad tell them how to act. So there's Erica.
More Black people.
Yay.
Yeah. Oh, it's the Angry Black Woman Show. I'm about to get hurt.
So it's like Beyonce just walked in.
Right.
I know, right?
Erica Washington's here. She was here for.
See, I didn't know that was the camera. I just threw it out of my way. I was like, I am here.
And this is the kind of show that Talking While Black is. Here, I'm gonna switch microphones with you. I'll hold this. Erica, jump in over there somewhere. Over there. Over there.
or she's I sit next to Laura. Look at that.
Well, Wanda's got your own microphone. He likes you.
He doesn't. That's all right.
Erica is with the Las Vegas Urban League, and this is the type of show that says Negroes just stop in.
I'm just here. I heard there were snacks.
You heard wrong.
Right.
If I can add that Erica's here, I think, you know, the Urban League Nevada Partners is an example of younger leadership and
Yes, I'm 12.
a difference because we were talking about how there's older leadership, and maybe that's why our community doesn't come together, congeal as quickly as others have when stuff happens. And, you know, I think Nevada Partners, you have Dr. Tyler, Urban League, you have Dr. Maxwell, Kevin, all of that stuff, and you can see them actually doing.
How do we
different
support
things.
them more, though? How do we, you know, like Kevin Hooks, who heads the Urban League, is dynamic.
Mhm.
Like, there's no other way to put it. How do, like, Leslie, you work a lot with young, for lack of a better term, what would be considered radical by a lot of these elderly leaders, you know, like, I'm not saying you're out turning over police cars. I'm not saying that.
What do you do?
Oh, they actually called us radical or, you know, unorthodox on the radio on 88.1, and I had to call in.
Well, one of the things, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things that came up with the Don't Shoot rally was they specifically told you that you couldn't do what you were trying to do without going through them, and that no one would show up
without going through the police department, basically.
Without going through the police, but also without getting permission from the elderly leadership.
Right.
They made it very clear that they were not supporting what you were doing. They made it very clear that they did not get it.
Mhm.
You know, it was like it was almost like the good Negroes versus King sort of situation. And yet that rally was huge. I mean, you know, the media was there, the people were there, and there was a spirit there that I hadn't seen, and there were people there that I had not seen before. So
We had, well, that was part of the negative feedback we had, was that we didn't reach out to community leaders, or we didn't reach out to, you know, this person and that person, you know, this pastor and that. And it's like, in my defense, I'm like, look, I just moved here and I don't even know these people. And
but that's what helped make it happen.
And for me, it was an urgency to make it happen. I wasn't trying to, you know, be political about it. It was like, no, we need to make our voice heard. Oh, you want to help? You want to help? You want to help? Okay, great. Come to my house. And it just happened. So that was a part of it. And after the rally, I did reach out to the people and try to, you know.
And where did that get you?
They were supportive for the most part. I mean, they still want to, I think it's more of a sense like they want to be included. But
Front and center, though.
Maybe, but I mean, for the most part, they were pretty supportive. So.
My issue came about when we were planning the rally, and there was a group of you made it clear that the rally was not about anything but Black men being murdered.
Right.
You made that very clear. But in the makeup of the people who would be talking and everything, you also made it clear that it was going to be inclusive. And there was a group of Black men there who, I don't know, the word transgender came up. And And I remember them dropping their papers because they were so startled to hear such a word at a black meeting, so-called black meeting. And I remember that they made it clear that they were not going to help. So then a few weeks later, there was another sort of semi-rally at the West Las Vegas Library. And as a gay man, I was so offended because it was the usual suspects up there. And out of nowhere, they were like likening gay people to the problem of black people being murdered, but this is because we've had a homosexualization of Jesus Christ.
Jesus is gay? What?
Jesus was a top. Yeah, and I was just like, Rolando shaking his head.
There's no FCC here.
No, but there's, and it bugged me because it was like, this is exactly why you didn't get to come play with us. He shakes her head.
It's hard. Education is hard. I mean, I can see my dad and some of those people. My dad just admitted that same-sex marriage is okay, but the caveat is, well, they have to answer to God, not me. So,
which is, you know what? I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that. If you are religiously opposed to anything I do, your attitude should be, go ahead, do what you're doing, but God is going to get you. Yeah. I'm cool with that. Because my God ain't gonna get me, Erica, weigh in.
I do not know what your God is going to do. But I would say that going back to the rally and the lack of inviting said community leaders, I think this town and probably a lot of other towns, I don't want to say it's just Las Vegas, but we have very large egos here. And we have quite a few people who are really big fish in a very small town. And Las Vegas is very small with this. And so if you've been here and you're a native and, people know who you are and you're an elected official or you're a pastor of a large church, it's become this expectation. So when it's not done, then it's looked at as snubbed instead of just saying, maybe one, you just moved here, you didn't know, or maybe two, maybe we're trying to do something different. And so that's always, it receives a lot of pushback. So just when new people come into town, Derik and I call it Mayberry all the time. We can smell them from a mile away. You're brand new. What are you doing here?
Right to the Taco Floyd's barbershop.
Right, exactly. And so there have been quite a few people who have had a lot of stuff thrown at them, when they've gotten here, and still have stuff thrown at them because they're still, if you haven't been here 5-10 years, you're still
I think it's 7 years before you're accepted.
Oh, so I just got accepted like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Which I really haven't, honestly.
Right.
So I might be accepted enough to say, yeah, she's here. But it's still, it's one of those things, and it's like I don't know, like a turf war. Is this West Side Story? but it's not that many black people here in the first place. So it's really kind of ignorant for people to push back when people want to actually come together and do something collectively.
Right.
I want to say something I think everybody is concerned with. Two things, actually. One is, and I probably am the dissenting voice on the second issue, but on the first issue, I know the plan is working on issues about helping to raise the minimum wage, and I want to talk about why that should happen, because obviously you get pushback from so many people saying that you're destroying business, etc. And then the other is payday lending, the quote unquote predatory practices. On that, like I said, I'm probably the dissenting voice because I've used payday lending as my place of last resort, and they did what they were supposed to do. I did what I was supposed to do. In a couple of cases, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And therefore, I probably shouldn't call a dollar loan anytime soon. But the point is that I don't get it. So if we could talk about minimum wage first,
Sure.
what are your efforts in that area?
So definitely we see, our country, our state facing a triple crisis of growing income inequality, hijacking of democracy, and a dying planet. And there's, racial injustice permeates through all of that. And, on minimum wage, we've created an economy based off of poverty wages. Corporations like McDonald's made $5 billion just in profit in 2014. And it's because they pay their workers minimum wage. We hear things that, if you raise the minimum wage, McDonald's invested $20 million into raising the salaries of their shareholders and their CEOs. They, with a fraction of that, they could have raised wages for their workers, just $1. It doesn't even have to be 15. But you know, study after study has shown just in the Las Vegas Valley, the real living wage for a single person, no children, is $16.38 an hour.
Wow.
That's to be able to afford your rent, your utilities, your transportation.
And that's half of what minimum wage is, right?
Yeah, minimum wage federally is $7.25. In Nevada, if your employer doesn't provide you with health insurance, it's $8.25. So you could work a full-time job.
Minimum wage is how much?
$7.25.
$7.25.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So you could
before
work,
taxes.
yes.
Yeah.
You could work a full-time job, be married. They could work a full-time job. You could have a kid. If you both make minimum wage, you're eligible for welfare benefits. And so
Which is a burden on the state.
So that's
Right.
what we say. You don't get to have a low minimum wage and nobody on welfare. You have to pick one. You either have a low minimum wage and a lot of people on welfare, or you bump the minimum wage and get people off of public assistance. Because these corporations like McDonald's are playing us on two ends. They get tax subsidies. The state Job Connect pays their new employees to be trained. And then we subsidize their employees' lifestyle by paying for Section 8 food stamps. And we work with these fast food workers. For them, like you said, the payday loans, for them, welfare is their last resort. They will do everything they can to avoid it. So it's not like, oh, I'll just work at McDonald's and then be on welfare. They don't want to be.
Because people who work, I would think that people who are working at McDonald's, part of their thing is, I want to work.
Right.
Yeah.
And to then say, I'm going to go get welfare, that does seem like that's the exact opposite of the whole reason that they exist, basically.
Yeah. And we have to remember, too, you know, fast food workers started this movement to raise the minimum wage, but it's grown. Security guards make $8 something an hour. Adjunct professors at UNLV make about $15,000 to $16,000 a year, which is probably below the minimum wage.
Right.
We've had daycare center workers, home health care workers. All of these industries, service, retail, food, are making minimum wage. And they make up over half the jobs in our economy. And it's why our economy is never fully able to recover, because it's half the people here can't pay their bills. They can't make ends meet. You know, they can't afford to buy cars. They can't invest. And that's why the culinary union is the best example of having a living wage. You know, they're a 55,000 member union. These members can send their kids to college. They can buy homes. They have health insurance, so they're not going to the ER for their medical care. And that's the model we should be looking at. And culinary workers work on the Strip. The casinos aren't going bankrupt. I can still stay in a room on the Strip for $50 a night. It's still cheap. I mean, that is what we should be looking at. And that's why I'm saying we're part of a platform to put people and planet first. People should come first before you worry about the cost of your Big Mac. People should come first before you worry about, I can hire this cheap security company because, they hire, people who are struggling through college and I can pay them minimum wage. Like, you shouldn't be able to cut corners and buy cheap labor because the expenses, our community is never fully economically recovered.
Wow. I never really thought about it that way.
When you look at minimum wage and you look at payday loans, I mean, if minimum wage was raised, there would be no need. There would be a far less of a need for payday loans because people wouldn't be struggling as much to get from one check to the next check. And you also have to look at the fact that a lot of those jobs, retail jobs and fast food jobs, the schedules, they don't have set schedules of 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week or however many hours, they're not guaranteed. They can few hours here and there and what have you. And so sometimes they don't even know, what their check is going to look like. I know what my check is going to look like next Friday. It's going to look exactly the same as it did next Friday after that. But for them, that doesn't work. And so if this check and their hours are cut, 1 week it's like, oh, well, we were slow. We didn't need you. You don't have to come in, whatever, what have you. Then all of a sudden their check is half of that. So then they really aren't making minimum wage. Because when we look at minimum wage, we always say $7 whatever an hour. And then you times that by 40 and you think about, well, this is how much they make a year. Not really.
Well, okay. So Leslie, you deal more with younger people. Do you think that they get this? Or have they just accepted it? Or have they said, well, I don't have a job anyway?
I think they get it. I think just collectively as young, although I don't really consider myself that young, but we understand that, I mean, in order for the economy to fully recover, that they have to raise the minimum wage. It's a given. So I think, and that's nationwide. It's not just here in Las Vegas, because obviously I just moved here. So speaking from like Los Angeles,
I don't understand how anybody in California, in LA in particular,
LA just raised their minimum wage
right
to
to
$15.
Okay.
$15 an hour.
and even that there,
It's still not enough. It's
Like San Francisco
still not
did
Oh
the
my
same
God.
thing, and it's like, okay, I still
Yeah,
can't afford
and-
it.
right. I mean, $15 an hour is still not enough to pay rent. That's $2,700 a month.
now, okay, so the
So-
conservative argument would be, then do better. Go to school, go make a better life for yourself.
I'm on my way right now. Right now, I'm going to go outside and make that happen.
It's easier said than done, but I
Exactly.
think that, low minimum wage, it's part of a whole plan. Evil people have plans. Conservatives have plans that started back in the 70s, and it was to extract power. It's to give the banking industry more power. It's to take away your voting rights. It's to ruin public education. It's to keep wages low. When you are broke, when you are tired, when you're sick, and when you're uneducated, you don't vote, and therefore you have no power. So that's the conservative, we need low wages. We have to support the businesses, because that's who they want to have power, is these corporations and people who are too busy worrying about, I don't know how many hours I work this week. Am I going to eat, or am I going to get a bus pass? They're not worried about who's running Congressional District 4. They're worried about surviving.
That's so true, because I've heard so many people
It's
say,
so true.
yeah, I'm
So true.
blown away by
There's
that.
a whole study on the poverty mentality, and the things you're thinking about survival on every level. You're thinking about how I'm going to eat today, not where am I going to find a healthier meal.
Yeah,
right.
You're thinking about just everyday survival. Same way with going to the ER. Not because it's an emergency, but because that's the only doctor you can go to,
Yeah.
and they have to see you. And so, honestly, for me, it almost feels a bit like a conspiracy. Like they don't really want you to come out of poverty. They keep saying that, but then we are keeping these ERs open in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
The people keep having to go there, and they're, the money is going somewhere. In the same way with the payday loans and anything else that could suck money out. Even
Keep
the
you enslaved.
you keep the liquor stores open. You keep the fast food places open, because not only are you working there, but that's all you're feeding your family.
Right.
Mhm.
So it's just recycled right back in, and it keeps everybody happy at the upper level.
When I was in Arizona is the only place I've been. During the height of the Depression, I went to Arizona, and the people there were begging me to help them get out of Arizona. Do you know anybody in Vegas hiring? I'd never seen a place where every single person that I met was like, I'm trying to get out of Arizona. It was weird. But one of the things that they said was that the system was set up. They said in the white, rich neighborhoods, the kids, all had laptops, and they all were taking AP classes and things like that. And in the poorer and colored neighborhoods, the kids didn't have any of that. The kids weren't even assigned homework. And I said, but how can that be? And they said that they basically had set it up so that the poor kids would be available for $10 an hour jobs. They would max out at $10 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, that's that whole pipe. They have, the levels. I can't remember what it's called. Laura, you may help me out. But the prison pipeline, but the different tracks that they put you on educational tracks of like, you're going to go this way, you're going to be blue collar, and
Yeah.
we can go that way. And
Because it wasn't just the people of color. It was the white poor people too.
no, of course.
They had definitely set it up so that they would never get past $10 an hour. So there would always be a service worker thing.
We need somebody to sweep the floors.
Right. And then that's what it was. And they were so frustrated. And I thought, wow, if you're looking at Nevada as is the golden land, you're
bar is
you're messed up. You're so messed up. So what about petty lending? Like I said, for me, I knew what I was getting into totally. I looked at the thing and I saw 3,000,000% interest, and I said, I don't care. I need $400.
And I think that's what it
That's
is.
the-
That's exactly the point, is that it preys on people who need
Desperation.
it. Yeah, exactly. They're desperate. They need it. Their power is getting ready to get cut off. They have nothing to feed their kids, and so they don't care about that high interest rate. So they just get the loan, but it's almost as if there's no way possible you can pay that loan back without some type of, I mean, if you pay it back on your next check, then guess what? You're in the same situation. Now you need to borrow again. And it's just like a vicious cycle.
Which, I mean, I've been in the lobbies and seen that, but I mean, for me, they were a lifeline. And, you know, and I don't blame anybody else for my economic situation at the time. That was me. That was me screwing up. That was me not handling my business. And they were my lifeline. And for the most part, I took care of, because I wanted to go back.
But could they have not been could they have still been your lifeline and not charged 3,000%?
That's what I was just about to say.
And when you come into the greed, where you, and so it's a matter of, we understand there's a need and there's a service. Great. You know, if I need a loan, a regular loan from Chase, they're going to charge me interest, but they're not going to charge that. You know, they're going to charge, I don't know, 15, 20%. I don't know what they're charging for loans, but whatever it is they're charging a
322%.
Right, and acceptable rate.
412%.
Like, what is that? Like, where do you come up with that number? That just sounds like some stuff that you were in the back room. Like, how much money can we squeeze out of you? Because we know you don't make any. And the other thing is, with Chase or whatever bank, they're also looking at my credit worthiness and whether or not I'm actually going to be able to pay it back, because they actually want their money back. Where these people over here charging this much, they really don't care if you can pay it back or not.
They trap you in a cycle of debt.
Exactly. They want you to stay in that. And that's why still they're not FDIC, insured or what have you, which I don't understand why and how that works, that they're not regulated by the government the same way a bank would be.
Is that what is Plan's view on this?
Well, we definitely don't want to get rid of payday lending or title lending. People should have access to loans, emergency loans, people who don't have traditional access to, banking institutions, who, like Bank of America and Wells Fargo has admitted, they prey on people of color, and they also unfairly target them for bullshit.
Right, they're shitty too. See, I'll help you out. They're shitty too. I'm not giving either one of them props, especially not Wells Fargo.
But when Senator Elizabeth Warren, before she was a senator, she created the Center for Financial Protection Bureau. And they are in a period where they're rulemaking. They're making rules for different financial institutions, and one of those is payday lending. So we want to enact some rules to protect people who need to access these loans, like limiting the access payday lenders have to your bank account. Right now, they have complete access to your bank account.
They can just go in and take it.
We've heard stories after stories where the loan is due and they take the money. For some reason, it's insufficient funds. So the payday lender will then try to take a smaller amount.
And I've actually had that happen to me. I have, and they just kept going until they got $12.
Yeah, and then
$12 I did need.
So you get charged that insufficient charge every time that they try to push some money. Oh, that's
and we've
crazy.
heard thousands of stories from across. We're working with a network of groups from across the country. We heard stories of the harassment. Somebody here in Vegas, their cousin wrote them down as when you get the loan, you have a reference. In one day, he was called 30 times.
Well, I have to tell my harassment story.
Go ahead.
So I get a phone call, and it's from, Susie with an I over at Payday, wherever. And she's like, "You owe us money." And I'm like, "Okay, you're right."
And the sky is blue.
Right. And we have a conversation left, So she said to me, "We can ruin your credit." And I said, "Well, you're late." And she said, "Well," and I was like, "You know what? I don't want to have this conversation anymore. Goodbye." And I said it exactly like that. So then I get another phone call. We know where you live.
See that? You can't even do that.
And I was like, do you realize that you just said to me, we know where you live? And she's like, "Yeah, what are you going to do about it?" So I hung up. I call back and speak to a manager. "We're sorry, we'll talk to her about this, blah, blah, blah." I get a phone call. It's Susie again. "You called my manager?"
Now my boyfriend knows.
She said, "My boyfriend now has your address."
Wow.
And I was just like,
apparently I'm crazy like Susie.
Right. And I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was afraid. I went to the window. I looked out. I was like, this is insane, because I didn't even call her manager back. Because obviously now Susie is going to send Bobby over to have a talk with me because I ratted out Susie. Right. It was really odd
that harassment is another part of it. It's crazy. And now I forgot
it's a loan shark business.
It is loan sharking. I'll give you.
It's legal loan sharking. And I don't know who started it and where it came from that they decided to,
and it's a great industry. They made $11 billion alone in just the fees. And it's not a product.
So have you researched?
It's not a direct service.
Have you researched to see who owns the majority of these the
majority? No, but I know in Nevada there's more payday lenders than there are Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
Wow. Dang.
That happened.
Wow. Are you serious?
But I'm just really wondering. I think it would climb the top like it's probably the Koch brothers or somebody.
But wait, though. Can you please repeat that?
In Nevada, there are more payday lending and car title institutions than there are Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
How is that even?
And even we were in...
I'm just flabbergasted. I'm sitting here like gobsmacked.
We were in Ely, Nevada this week, and I couldn't even find a gas station, but I found 2 payday loan centers.
Wow.
It's ubiquitous. They're everywhere. And another thing they're doing now, which is why we want the Center for Financial Protection to step in, now they're not even verifying you have a job. They're not even verifying you can pay your loan back.
They don't.
They can get those fees. They can keep going after you. That's what they want.
It's only a matter of time before they just brand us. They said, and I think
Scarlet letter.
I think somewhere in the Bible they talk something about like 666 or something like just imprinted on your head.
And it's these communities that are being affected, and then you're extracting wealth from these communities. Because if you're just paying back your payday loans, you can't pay your rent. Right. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't support the local business that's, where you mail your postage or whatever, because you're spending all your money on these payday loans.
Well, okay, let's segue into my favorite subject of the week. The newly bisexual.
No, we're done with her. I am so off that train. Can I just say before you even say her name, because I saw your post and I was like, whatever. She's just fluid apparently all over the place.
Can I add quickly before you go in? Like twice this, I'm mad at her twice because people always think I'm Latina. And twice this week, people have been like,
"So you're not really black?"
Leader. And I've been like, "No, I'm black." And they're like, "Ah." Like, no, I'm like actually black.
No, we're done with that. We found out.
But here's my thing, and Mikey Kelly, if he's listening, his daughter said, "Would she want to be black during slavery?"
Ooh. Well, she's super lesbian. She'd be inside.
She'd be a house Negro, so it wouldn't be quite so bad. She would have talked her way into the family.
But seriously, though, I honestly say that with the mass terrorist shooting. And
this is what I want to bring up. I think that she has managed single-handedly, and this is what bothers me about white people. White people have gone out of their way to defend her and to say that she's actually done a good thing. Oh, we've had this wonderful discussion about race. Or, oh, why are you having a problem with her? It's just because she's white and she's trying to help black people. We need this psychopathic liar helping us. So my point is, we just had an act of terrorism last night,
which no one's calling terrorism,
which is so important.
Assassination.
Right. Leslie and I were talking about this on the way over. Not only that, but today in the news, I saw that the police are saying they're looking for a deranged man. Right. No, you were looking for a white racist domestic terrorist. But we've gotten sidetracked.
Right. They've already set the media for everyone to just be, what's the word?
They're gonna find him, and then he's just gonna have some mental illness.
Right. Oh, they did find him.
They found him.
I just saw on Twitter, and of course he doesn't have a scratch on him.
Of course,
taken into custody.
Yeah, taken into custody. Yes.
Right. The little girl in Texas was like body slammed.
Right. Right. But people are never taken into custody.
But my whole point in bringing that up was, the fact is, I would like that to knock old girl out the news cycle. Like, I just really don't even want to see her face anymore. God help me. I need her to find several seats, sit with them, and stay there, because she's not adding to the discussion.
Not only is it not going to, as we've seen, when it started to die down, she became bisexual. And the news was all over it. First, it was like they were trying to find the connection to being transgender, which there is none, America. And then now, she's bisexual. But yeah, it's like is there a concerted effort to make sure that Black anger doesn't have any feet to stand on in America? Like you said, taken into custody, deranged. If it were a Muslim,
this would just have blown up into a whole ISIS thing.
Yeah. A Muslim killing one white cop would be domestic ISIS. But
well, look what they did in the Boston bombing, which was out of control. They shut that city down.
Right. A major U.S. city.
They shut down entry, exits, airport shut down. Everything was shut down.
But for 9 people being slaughtered by a domestic terrorist who happens to be white, it was like, oh, we're looking for him.
And he's definitely a terrorist because they posted his Facebook profile and he's wearing the apartheid flags from South Africa. Like repping him.
Right. And then
who reps Bota? You know?
So, but he must already have a record because the one picture I saw, he was in an orange jumpsuit. So
he was arrested for trespassing on a pasture. He's probably raping animals.
Right. Because they do that kind of
Carolina.
stuff. Yeah.
Where my family's from, so I can say that.
Yeah, I mean, what can we do? Because, like, for instance, with Rachel Dugugugu, there were academics, Black academics, lined up on NPR.
They wanted to get on TV.
Yeah, but
they had nothing to say.
What role do they have in all
That's
this?
how you know she's really white. All these Black men came out caping for her.
Oh, that wasn't the best line over there.
Right.
Yeah, but I think we just have to continue to call people out, and that's what I've really liked about social media. And I've said this at the Womanist panel, like you really find this community of people who have worked together on social media. They've exposed people. They have, got people fired, people saying racist crap on Twitter. People will work together, like find her and like the next day she's fired. Right. Like that's what I like. And now people are going journalists because after the French cartoonists were murdered which is, I'm pretty sure it was considered terrorism.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Or a hate crime.
What? Yeah. Which one?
The Paris.
Oh, yeah. And then having it at the same time as
and it's like, all these journalists like, oh, I am Je suis Charlie. I feel the connection. It's like, okay, do you feel the connection with these people who are at Bible study? Because keep in mind, this white kid didn't just like throw open the doors and start shooting. Yeah, he sat in Bible study for like an hour with them.
Are you serious?
And they invited him in and welcomed them to Bible study. He sat down, participated, and then
slaughtered them.
Yeah.
Leslie was saying earlier that it reminded her of the church bombings in 1964. Why would that be?
Just because Black churches being targets, and not to mention this was a politician was killed. A prominent pastor in the community was killed. So these are, high-ranking Black people who are slaughtered while they're at church. Yeah. So one of my friends posted on Facebook, all we can do is pray, like with the question mark, and her response was they were praying.
Mm-hmm. What you got now? What you got now? Because to me, this to me is worthy of national outrage.
Right.
But is there any?
I don't feel that there is.
No, and I really try to pay attention, especially to my Twitter and my Facebook feeds of who's posting what and who's saying something. It's usually the same people. I have a lot of activist friends. I have a lot of friends who are active in movements, and so they're always posting stuff. So it feels like there's this outcry because I'm seeing it all over. But when I really take a closer look at it, like the average everyday person, the teachers and everything, they're not saying anything about it. And
I guarantee
the same people who speak out
all the time.
Right. I guarantee that if I go to my Facebook, I'm going to go to my Facebook feed, and I guarantee, love being real, tonight I go BLT cheddar ranch burgers. 6 million people shop on Geek.
And those are the ones that get all the likes, though.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it's Ramadan.
Really deep and moving and profound. And I'm like, wow, that was profound.
And my single
you get 2 likes.
Okay, I'm now down like
about my margarita.
I'm halfway down the page, and honestly, maybe this is white privilege talking, but some middle-aged lady who's clearly more than a little mental lied about her race on a job application, and this is what the country has its tits in an uproar about. Really? Yeah, really. Has anyone's Aunt Flo not visited for 5 months? And when she does, she's extending her stay on the 5th week. Not one thing.
Somebody's pregnant on your timeline.
Right.
Somebody didn't use a condom.
The thing is, I know this girl. She's a lesbian. So
Somebody
you got
had a
problems.
problem name they forgot.
That one friend who don't want to text because they respond to your text with a phone call. I am now several pages, and here's a black fight on progressive black thinkers about.
I'm gonna need you to get some better friends.
Right.
'Cause
I'm really going down the list. Monster truck, some girl with big boobs. There is not one single thing.
You need to put a filter on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna
like-
need you to
And just put angry black
because the
people.
first no, but I mean, like the first thing I see when I go on mine is she is an activist though. Her name is Karen and she lives in New York. The first thing is about the Charleston shooting, and I scroll down a little further and I don't know, people are changing their profile pictures to black now. I guess that's the thing. I don't know.
Is
It's
that
just
a tribute or is that a comic
Oh, I don't know. No,
take on the situation?
I don't know. I'm just seeing it. So
I don't have one single person mentioning.
And then the next person is a friend of a friend. They're talking about it. So another friend, all mine are talking about it. I have better friends than you.
I honestly have a bunch of loser friends who don't really care about anything. But on the other hand, why should they?
Yeah.
Why should they?
Why shouldn't they?
Well, okay, but why should they? Here's the thing. We have allowed, for instance, Rachel DeGugulu, we have allowed them to reframe that as a thing of what's your problem with it? We are not out in the streets. Like, where's our local faith community saying, no, stop everything right now. We're going to have a memorial tonight for these people. Where's our responsibility?
Well, they are doing one actually at the AME church here, I think, today.
You think today?
I saw it on Facebook earlier. I
So-
can't give you accurate
so-
information on that, but I do know that I saw a posting of saying, come and pray with us. Because my first
50
thought is like, why?
50
I don't
years
want
ago,
shot.
50 years ago, Bayard Rustin organized an army of people to get on the phone in the days before computers, in the days before smartphones, in the days of no technology, and got, 1 million people or whatever it was to the mall to march on Washington. You think First AME is possibly doing something today. That's a problem. That is a problem and because you saw a Facebook posting. What about Miss Ellie? What about Miss Ruby? I'd call Miss Ruby right now. Do you know about this? If Miss Ruby don't know about it, that means nobody has put any effort into it. Posting on Facebook and not doing anything else is lazy as hell.
It is lazy, but I think we have to go back to also not. This incident happened in a church, but I think that one of the issues as far as our movements in the Black community and people reaching out to people in the Black community is they go back to the churches. It's not 1965 anymore. We're not meeting in basement churches to have talks about
But yet
race
the people
anymore.
who run the churches it's act like we do.
They act like we do, but yet they don't really discuss political things that I know of in churches
No,
anymore.
they're too busy.
You don't
They're
have
too
the
busy
meetings there
denouncing
anymore.
gays and women who step out of their place and slut shaming and all. I'm not
So-
a fan of the
right.
Black church.
So
Let's just get that clear.
So I just think that, one, because I've had conversations, and I think I've had conversations with Laura about this, of people calling me at the Urban League, say, I think it was someone from the police department saying, we're putting together this thing, some type of event or what have you.
And we
so-
want to know when the
and-
riot's going to be.
And that we schedule our riots at least 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time because I want to make sure my toes are done, things like
Gotta
that.
get the weave in.
It's just get the new eyelashes. So, but they asked me, they started going down the list of places that they had contacted, and they were all basically Black churches in Las Vegas or what have you. And I was like, well, did you contact Plan, or have you talked to this
Right.
person
The
or
people
that
actually do
person?
something.
Da, 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 da. And they're like, oh, we don't know anything about them. We don't. And I said, but these are the people that are actually doing something, and so you're reaching out to the same old one. You go back to ego, but then you also have, this archaic sense of we're still in 1962. You know, that we're still doing things the same way. We're still meeting in the basement and having a revival and talking about what we're going to do, and then we're going to get out and march.
Which leaves young people out of the discussion.
It leaves them all out of the discussion. So, you know, Facebook is great for announcing things, but you're right. You have to outreach in so many different ways, and you have to do it. You have to intersect, and you also have to reach outside of Las Vegas too. You know, if they reached outside of Las Vegas, if we had a better connection to other cities, and I think that when things like this happen, you know, we'd be more alert, personally.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm PO, and I'm like, we have to come to the end of this because it's 9 o'clock, and Rolando just walked towards me, looking at me like, you need to get out. But thank you guys. Thank you, Laura, with Plan. And how does one find out more about Plan?
Well, you can go to our website at PLANevada, spelled out.org, and also our Facebook and Twitter is PLANEVADA.
And Erica is with the Las Vegas Urban League. She's the Director of Development. And how does one find out more about the Urban League?
Well, they can just call me. Get on Facebook. Be my Facebook friend.
And post relevant crap.
Exactly. So the Urban League's website is lvul.org, and we just actually unveiled our new website. So, you know, if there are any bugs, don't call me. But it is very
if there's praise, call you.
Exactly. If it's praise, and yeah, I had something to do with that. And we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, so you can find us everywhere.
And Twitter, it's at LVUL, which is one of the simplest Twitter handles out there, and thank you for that, because it's so easy.
It's hard out there, you know.
Right,
so and then our Instagram is a little harder, but it's Las Vegas Urban League spelled out, and there's an underscore.
I hate underscores. I hate underscores.
Okay, sometimes life brings you an underscore, and you need to use it.
I'm not done with that struggle.
Really cute pictures on there.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, you do.
I have to brag. Last picture I posted got like 20 likes in like less than a minute. Do you know how happy that made me? I was feeling like a superstar.
Because the standing likes and views on it was on Facebook, Leslie and Turner was just looking at me like, you just